infinite amount of singularities just scrapped because it didn't fit our concepts. So I started to think, well, okay, if the universe is expanding and the universe is contracting, then there's got to be geometry to describe that. There's got to be a structure that describes the contractive side. The expansion side was pretty easy to figure out. If things are expanding from a point, from a center, then they must be expanding radially. It must make the geometry of a sphere. Right? The expansive part being the geometry of a sphere. That's what we see. A sun, a planet, a galaxy. Galaxies have galactic halos that are perfect spheres around them. Atoms, cells, whatever. Spheres. So we see the sphere part because that's the expansion part. But what I wanted to know about was the contractive structure of the vacuum. Why did I want to know about that? Because if I understood the structure of the contractive part of the vacuum, then I understood the geometry of the foundation of creation. Do you guys follow me there? Because if that's what creates, if that's the general active thing, that's the thing that holds things together, then that's the key to the force of creation of all things. If you have a sphere or a ball on the end of a rope and you spin the rope, you're going to feel a force outside pulling away from your hand, right? That is not a true force. It's called centrifugal force. It's not a true force because the only reason that force is occurring is because the ball is attached to the rope, which is attached to your hand. The centripetal force, the force that's holding the ball to the center, is what's making it go in a circle. Without the string, the ball is going straight and there's no force. You guys follow me? So actually the force that holds to the center is the primary force from which the illusionary radiation occurs. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, that has huge implication in philosophy as well. Because if you go inward deeper and deeper, then you would expect more and more radiance to occur. Because you have a feedback relationship between the internal gravitational collapse and the external expansion of the electromagnetic field. So I was really excited about that, but I didn't know what was the geometry or the structure of the collapse. I knew one thing, is that the geometry of the collapse had to be in equilibrium. So I looked and I thought, well, if the sphere is the highest volume possible, which it is, then the geometry, so it's the highest volume possible because it's expanding, right? Then the geometry of the collapsing vacuum must be the smallest geometry possible. The smallest volume, the volume that's collapsing. And that is a tetrahedron. Everybody here knows what a tetrahedron is? Okay. While I'm traveling, it's kind of hard to bring all my models. But this is a double tetrahedron. Okay, there's two there. Actually, there's 8 making an octahedron in the middle. but we're not going to get too complex here. If you have a tetrahedron, you have four faces, four equilateral triangle faces. It's like a pyramid with a triangle base. Okay? It's like three triangle faces with a triangle base. It's the smallest volume possible. And thus, that had to be the final geometry of the collapse. Well, you know, when I was thinking about these things, it was almost 15 years ago, there wasn't people like if you go in Sedona right now, you know, like, or, you know, Burning Man or whatever, you know, there wasn't people going around with tetrahedrons on their heads and like living in tetrahedron houses and, you know, having tetrahedron cars and stuff like that. You know, at that time, nobody even knew what the heck was a tetrahedron. I mean, it was not so common, although, you know, that comes all the way back from the Pythagorean school and then Plato schools and so on. So I was, you know, at the age of 16, after all my encounters with current physics and so on, I decided I was done. And it's great because I just went to the Einstein exhibit in New York and found out that Einstein did the exact same thing and quit school at 16. But I was, you know, I couldn't keep doing this. I was just running into troubles everywhere I went. And so I started to teach skiing. Because I was a good skier, I figured I can live that way and do research at night. So I was doing research at night and skiing every day, teaching skiing, being in nature. And I was like, well, you know, after years of skiing, I taught skiing for 15 years. I became one of the top ski instructors in Canada. I was one of the 20 top ski instructor in Canada, ski coach. And I was very successful. And I was going from Canada to Australia, New Zealand in the summer to do their ski season there. And then back to Canada. And then back to Australia. And then back to Canada. And I was freezing my butts out. I had no time to unfreeze. I had like a week and a half to 2 weeks on, you know, Fiji Island, you know, in between seasons. And I was just not cutting it. So after a while of doing that, I got tired of it. And one summer I said, that's it. I ain't teaching skiing again this summer. I'm going to teach scuba diving. So I'm, you know, decided to thaw out one summer and teach scuba diving. And I had been scuba diving since I was a young kid. So I knew I could teach scuba diving. So I opened a map and I thought, okay, I gotta be south of the border. It's gotta be extremely hot. And so I took a map of Mexico and I found this little island called Isla Mujeres. And I thought, wow, you know, I was a ski instructor. Island of the women, man. That sounds good to me. So I decided I was going to go to Isla Mujeres. So I went down there and I got a job as a dive master. And I started to, you know, dive master down there. And I learned a lot and all this. And then one day, I had a day off. And I decided to go for a little expedition. And I hadn't seen the pyramids, so I decided to go to Chichen Itza. The pyramids of Chichen Itza. Well, you know, it's like you get in the bus, you know, I had to take the ferry from the island. I got in the bus, you know, with the chickens and the pigs and everything. And I'm going through the jungle, you know, for hours. And then finally, you see these pyramids sticking out of the jungle. In the middle of nowhere. And it's like, huh? And they're like these huge monuments. And I get onto the site and I'm walking around and I'm like going, wow, how did this get here? So I'm climbing on top of the pyramid, and